The last time we talked, Brandon, we were discussing whether you'd find time to keep up with the latest movies and TV despite the activity around the playoffs. Have you managed to do that?
I got to go out and see the new Michael movie, the Michael Jackson movie. So kind of, yes. Not a whole lot of shows yet, but I did watch Michael.
And I recall it was before you got married for your bachelor party. A group of us went to Vegas, and your choice was to go see the Michael Jackson show at I. I can't remember what hotel it was. It's the tall one. I should know that, but I'm not a big, I guess I'm Vegas expert. You remember that? So I know you're a big Michael Jackson music fan.
Yes, I am. And yes, I do remember that. And that was a great show. And the movie is, I have mixed feelings on the movie because like the music part of it was awesome and amazing. I think that they could have done a better job as far as like the pacing and getting into the creative process of making the music and kind of showing more of how musically, like his musical genius part of it. I don't know if the movie hit on that, but it's still a really fun, entertaining watch. Kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody. I think it was an entertaining watch. Was it like the best movie? No, but it was fun if you're a fan of Queen, and that's kind of how I felt about the Michael Jackson movie too.
Looking at the reviews, the Rotten Tomatoes score for Michael, it's wild. It's 37% from the critics and 97% for the audience. So what do you think that's about? Now that you've seen it, I'm kind of curious because I'm like, look at the disparity in the score.
Yeah, that is a wild, wild disparity. I think it makes sense though, because I think it's exactly how I would describe it. Like critically, like as far as a film goes, was it great? No, there were some good elements to it. But if you're just a fan of the music and want to have a good time, like for 2 hours at the movie theater, like it's kind of a greatest hits of Michael Jackson, that part of it makes sense. So I actually get it, even though that is a wild disparity.
Welcome back to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, publisher of Daily Thunder, and I'll be your host today. Alongside me is Daily Thunder beat writer Brandon Rahbar. Brandon, how are you? On this Wednesday, after the Thunder just completed a 4-0 series sweep of the Phoenix Suns.
Doing well. That was an entertaining 4 games. That is now 12 straight first-round wins for the Thunder, 3 straight sweeps. SGA averaging 34 points per game on ridiculous numbers. So, yeah, it was fun to watch the Thunder take care of business.
Do you feel like that series went exactly how you thought it would go, or was there anything that surprised you?
Yeah, so I initially picked the Thunder in 5 just because I felt like the Phoenix might get one in Phoenix because they've been competitive all season long, and it's like a high effort, no quit team. And I thought maybe like shooting variants, the Suns get hot one game and the Thunder get cold one game. Maybe they could take one, but I was not going to be surprised at all if it was Thunder in 4. Like I was 50-50 on it. I thought the Thunder would dominate a couple games and maybe we get a couple close ones. So it went pretty much how I thought it would go. And I think how most people thought that this series would go. Look, the Thunder were just clearly the more talented team. The Suns were clearly outmatched, even with the Thunder not having J-Dub. The Suns didn't have Mark Williams all series long. They didn't have Grayson Allen for 3 of the games, but ultimately the Thunder are just much, much better. So I think this pretty much went how you would expect this to go. The Suns had a successful season, just making it to the playoffs. Nobody thought that the Suns were going to be there. They were projected to be like 14th in the West preseason. So kudos to Phoenix for a great season, but they went up against a juggernaut.
Well, to toot my own horn on the playoff preview pod, I think I was the one person who was the sunshine pumper that said the Thunder would sweep the Suns. Both
That's
you and
right.
Ryan expressed a 5-game series, so I think I was the rightest person.
Yeah, no, you were. You did know that. That's right. So well done. So
Well done, yes.
now I'm going to be curious to get your round 2 predictions, see if you call another sweep or not.
Yeah, well, no spoilers yet. We have to get through the first round to get there. But yeah, I think you're right that the Suns had a overachieving season. I don't know. Dylan Brooks is a player to me that is very easy to hate, right? He's annoying when he is on the court. He always looks like he's uh, mad or annoyed or that the world is against him. But I'm kind of surprised at how good he was this year for the Suns, and I think he was a big reason they were as competitive as they were. The fact that they won 45 games and made the play-in. Props to Dylan Brooks. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. Look, the this whole series, it was interesting to me, like the Dylan Brooks of it all, because he is like a villain if he's not on your team. Apparently, everybody that's on his team, his teammates, fans, organization, love Dylan Brooks, and he is like a culture changer. Like the Suns were more competitive. They had an edge to them, and I think that's very much due to Dylan Brooks. And he was their best player really throughout the series, even more so than Devin Booker. And it's funny because Shea and Lou Dort are friends with Dylan Brooks off of the court, from Team Canada, and it was all hugs and smiles as soon as, the games were over, as soon as game 4 was done. But on the court, he was, he leans into the villain role, and I think it makes it for a more entertaining series. And, Thunder fans obviously couldn't stand the dude, during the series, but yeah, I think he makes things more entertaining.
Yeah, he definitely made things more entertaining. And I of the entire Phoenix Suns roster, um, I think I'd give him credit as being the guy who brought it every single game. And I know SGA posted that AI generated image of the Dylan Brooks back of his jersey with Cancun on three. Just
Yeah.
pretty spicy, pretty funny. But yeah, Dylan Brooks brought it every game. I thought Devin Booker did not bring it every game. And that first half in the deciding game 4, he was bad.
Yeah, he was. I'm going to grant a little grace to Devin Booker because the guy was going up against an elite historic defense, and the point attack defenders that the Thunder can throw at you between Lou Dort and Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso, J-Dub when he played, and then the backline defense of Chet and Hartenstein. And the Thunder's whole defensive strategy, especially in the playoffs, is to take out a team's number one option, like your best scorer. And that for the Suns is Devin Booker. Like they're going to make other players beat you. We saw this, in the playoffs last year. They're going to try to take away your number one option. And for Devin Booker, just like we saw Ja Morant in the first round last year and Brandon Ingram in the first round the year before, it's bad times for number one options in the playoffs, especially in the first round against this Thunder team, because usually if you're a number 8 seed, your number 2, number 3 scoring options aren't nearly the threats that some of the contenders have as number 2 and number 3 scoring options. So, Jalen Green is a wild card up and down all the time. He's going to get his shots up. Will they go in? We'll see. Dylan Brooks, he had a great series, but the Thunder weren't too worried about him being the main scoring option. So I think that kind of explains why Devin Booker, didn't have a great series. I think it says more about the Thunder defense than it does about Devin Booker himself.
And then speaking of the Thunder defense, and I guess I'll ask if you agree or disagree with this statement, but in game 1, the Thunder came out and they brought it from the tip. And their energy on the defensive end was as good as, to me, as I've seen it virtually all season. The rotations were on point and perfect. The closeouts were hard. They were selling out to get closeouts. The steals, the hands, everything that's the Thunder defense at its peak. And as a result, they just wiped the floor with the Suns in game 1. It then, as the series progressed, we would see it in spurts, but not with the same kind of intensity throughout all 4 quarters. And it was like the Thunder, they turned it on to show that what they could do and to maybe It's like a football player, defensive player putting a hit on the quarterback just to put some fear into them. And then the other three games, they didn't have to flex the way that they did in game one to win those games. They kind of cruised at times.
Yeah, and I think some of that, I think you nailed it. And I think some of that was just like these dudes were ready to play playoff basketball. They were off for a whole week, waiting on the play-in tournament, waiting to find out who they were going to play. And, even before that, all the starters and rotation guys missed the last couple games of the year. So they hadn't played in a long time. And they were well rested and ready to play. And they just smacked the Suns in that first game. And I do think that some of it, games 2 through 4, there wasn't that same, I don't want to say urgency, but, definitely not the same type of ferocity that we saw in game one. Some of that, I think Phoenix played a little bit better. They were more well rested in games 2 through 4. They had that quick turnaround after their playing game and then game one. So I think some of that was Phoenix. I think some of it wasn't. The Thunder didn't bring the same intensity because maybe they could cruise a little bit. Some of that, they didn't have J-Dub in games 3 and 4 and part of game 2, and he brings a lot of that energy. And then some of that, the Thunder were at home in game 1 and 2, and the Thunder crowd, they feed off of that loud city atmosphere. So I think it's maybe a little bit of A, a little bit of B, a little bit of C.
Well, and then down to the individual level, obviously Shea was the best player on the court. And the best player for the Thunder, averaging 33.8 points per game over the course of the series. He shot the ball really well. Who do you think was the Thunder's second best player in the series?
I think it was Chet. Chet averaged like 17 points per game, like 17.3. I'm going off memory here. And from my memory is like 55% from the field, 39% from three, and 91% from the free throw line. And then, he had that game where he had 4 blocks. He had a game where he had a couple of steals. So obviously, defensive anchor, absolutely crushed it on the defensive end, but he was very, very efficient on the offensive end and was kind of everything that the Thunder need. Also, he was big on the boards in this series. He had 12 boards in game 4. He just kind of did whatever the Thunder needed him to in each game. Now, I will give an honorable mention here to J-Dub because I think he was actually the Thunder's best player in game 1, and he was right there with Shea until he got hurt in game 2. So honorable mention J-Dub in the time that he played. And then AJ Mitchell, his final field goal percentage and efficiency wasn't great, but man, he had a great game 4 and kind of showed he can step up if needed to in J-Dub's absence.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning, the Thunder without J-Dub for a big chunk of game 2 and then also game 3s and 4. And, with that grade 1 strain, the recovery time is a lot shorter than in a grade 2. So hopeful that J-Dub could return maybe in the second round if Thunder need him, definitely by the Western Conference Finals. But yeah, J-Dub led the team on average, an average per game in plus minus at 19.5 plus minus in his 2 games. But you mentioned AJ Mitchell. AJ Mitchell was second on the team in plus minus, ahead of Shea.
Yeah, that's impressive. I know that game 4 he was like a plus 27 or something absolutely crazy. He just knows how to play, and he really doesn't have a weakness. We talk about this with J-Dub a lot. Like he's a do-it-all, jack of all trades with no real weakness. And I feel the same way about AJ Mitchell. Like, is AJ Mitchell the best shooter or the best defender? No, but is he a good shooter and a good defender? Yes. And he can play make. He can shot create for others. He can drive the ball. He's a great finisher. He's just a smart, good all-around player in every facet of the game. And to have a guy like that coming off the bench and to be able to step into the starting role and be your secondary playmaker and shot creator, especially when he was a second-round rookie last year, who hasn't played a whole lot of basketball because of injuries, to be able to count on a dude like that in the playoffs is very, very impressive. And he kind of went from being a luxury for the Thunder. To me, he's an essential necessity now to what the Thunder do.
And I like the way that he was attacking the basket and playing downhill. And he's gotten so good at it, at getting to the basket, that he commands so much attention. Um, I mean, I don't know if this is a stat that anybody could count, but it seemed that even if he missed at the rim, the amount of attention that he garnered, there was gonna be a Hart or a Holmgren who could clean that up on the backside because all the defensive attention was on AJ Mitchell.
Yeah, the scouting report is out. Like, this is no longer a secret. Now, maybe, this is a kind of a coming out party on the national stage for AJ Mitchell for fans of other teams who don't know about him, but he is absolutely in other teams and other coaches and other players' scouting reports now. Like, the word is out on AJ Mitchell, like the defensive attention that he's going to get moving forward. People know that he can play. I really think that he would have won Sixth Man of the Year had he not gotten hurt and played more games. I'm like, he was still a, top 5 finisher despite missing so many games, and I think that he may be the leading candidate next year if he plays enough games. He is an absolute game changer. To be able to have this dude as your third ball handler and shot creator and playmaker is just bananas.
Another player I want to talk about is Alex Caruso. Of course, Alex Caruso was built for the playoffs,
Yeah.
especially on the defensive side of the ball. But to me, what stood out, and I don't want to jinx him, so I'm going to, I guess, maybe knock on wood. During the regular season, Caruso was a 29% three-point shooter. So far in the 4 games of the playoffs, he is a 47% three-point shooter. Was Caruso just saving it all for the playoffs?
Yeah, he was hustling us all. He was playing the long con. This is who Alex Caruso is. He's said it before in interviews that like he is built for the playoffs and he can't really sustain the way that he plays in the playoffs over an 82 game season. And that's why the Thunder, are very cautious with his minutes. He doesn't play a whole lot of minutes in games that he does play. And, in back to backs, they can rest him if they need to. And so they'll limit his games, they'll limit his minutes in the regular season because he is the ultimate X factor in the playoffs. And you want him healthy. You want him to be able to do this. Now, that's mostly usually like things that you can control, like the effort and energy and defense and hustle. Like that's what goes to an 11 in the playoffs, whereas maybe he's like an 8 in the regular season as far as like his own standards. Now the 3-point shooting, like, yeah, I don't know if that's just coincidence or like laser focus or he levels up in the playoffs. Like you would think that that's just, shot variance, but because it's Alex Caruso and we know he is another player in the playoffs, I will just say that he gets a playoff bump that is unexplainable in the playoffs.
And I guess one other thing I want to talk about in this first round, as far as the individual players, and maybe it's the rotation specifically. Were you surprised to see Wiggins maybe get more rotation minutes than Jared McCain? Because I think seeing the way that McCain kind of closed out the season, the way that he fit, it almost seemed like he had taken the Aaron Wiggins role. But now that the playoffs have rolled around, Mark seems to be going to Wiggins ahead of McCain.
Yeah, I was surprised. Yes, because it seemed like McCain definitely, well, it didn't seem like it was very apparent that McCain was getting regular rotation minutes ahead of Wiggins, down the stretch. And I'm curious because Jada was out and because Isaiah Joe was out and Wiggins got those minutes and he played pretty well in those minutes. And maybe it's a thing where he trusts Wiggins because he knows he's a solid playoff contributor. And they trust Aaron Wiggins because of his history with this team and what he's done with this team. And I think that in those moments, McCain is still new to the team and there's question marks about his defense in the playoffs. I think that they had some minutes to give with Joe and Dub out and they wanted to give Wiggins those minutes. Now, does that mean like going forward that I think that Wiggins will play ahead of McCain in certain spots? Not really. I think that McCain, he had a nice stretch, I believe in game 3 where he came in and scored 7 quick points in the second quarter and played really well. And I think that we could see that going forward with McCain. Like if they need a sudden, quick burst of offense or shooting or gravity, maybe lean on McCain a little bit. I think that can fluctuate and change game to game or matchup to matchup. I do think that there's a clear 10 guys, though, if everybody's healthy. Like if Dub is playing and Joe is playing and it's a competitive game, um, and they're just playing the guys that they're going to play in those competitive games, I think it's the 5 starters and then AJ, Caruso, Kaysen, Jay Will, and Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, I completely agree. And having the McCain and Wiggins pairing to come off the bench when you need a spark or something, it's a luxury the Thunder have, but it's not a luxury that they need when everybody's healthy.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and jump to the second round then. So again, it's Wednesday. The Lakers and the Rockets play tonight, and the Lakers have the opportunity to close this series out. One, how surprised are you that the Lakers have really taken it to the Rockets despite being without Reeves and Luka Doncic? And do you think the Lakers close this one out tonight?
Uh, Incredibly surprised. I thought the Rockets were going to win this series, but I couldn't predict, and nobody predicted that KD was going to miss 3 of the 4 games so far. And the biggest surprise to me was that they lost the game that KD did play. This should be a 2-2 series, even with KD missing 3 games. The Rockets just completely gave away game 3. I am surprised. All that said, I thought that the Rockets, when the Lakers don't have Luka or Austin Reeves, whether KD played or not, I felt like the Rockets were the better team. So kudos to 41-year-old LeBron James for doing what he's doing, and for Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard. They're having a great series. Rui is having a great series. Uh, I I think that tonight is a coin flip. I really do. I would lean the Lakers just because LeBron is the best player in this series right now, with KD not playing and Luka and Reeves. Well, Reeves is going to be back, first of all, so that's going to help them. It's in LA, and I think if they go back to Houston for game 6, Houston is going to win that, and then it's a game 7 where anybody can win. I just can't see this Rockets team being the first team in NBA history to come back from a 3-0 series deficit. So I think the Lakers will close it out tonight. Now, I will say we don't know what condition Austin Reeves is going to be in. He hasn't played in a long time. And as good as he is, if he's not in rhythm, he's not good defensively. So the defense will take a hit. And their defense has been actually pretty decent so far in this series. So if the defense takes a hit with Austin Reeves back and he's not in rhythm and he's not bringing it, like he usually does offensively, maybe it's one of those deals where him playing tonight hurts more than helps, and the Rockets can steal this game. But I'm expecting this to be Thunder Lakers in round 2.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned that game 3 meltdown. I mean, that was an epic collapse by the Rockets in the final minutes of that game. Embarrassing.
I think given the circumstance, up 6 points, you have the ball and it's 30 seconds left. It may be the biggest collapse I've ever seen, at least in the playoffs, if not ever. Like the chances, like every single thing, you had to turn the ball over immediately. That happened. You had to either give up a 3-pointer or foul a 3-point shooter. That happened. And then immediately turn over the ball again and either give up a 3-pointer or foul a 3-pointer. And that happened. It's just absolutely crazy that all those things happened for them to lose this game in the fashion that they did. That was wild. And when something like that happens, it's just hard to believe that a team's going to win a series after you give up a game like that.
Yeah, and it may be premature to make this comment, and I know Durant has missed most of the series, but we had just talked about how the Suns overachieved despite Durant leaving the Suns. And then Durant goes to the Rockets, who were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference last year. And now they're on the verge of getting eliminated to the Lakers, who are without 2 of their 3 best players. Is this a Kevin Durant thing? Does he make teams worse?
I don't know. It's so hard to say. It would be easy to pile on. And like you said, the evidence is there. That said, though, like watching this Rockets team this year, like he was like their only offense. They struggled to do anything without KD. But there is something to be said about team chemistry and, kind of being like such an ISO type player. And then you get into the playoffs and he's getting double teamed and he can't pass out of these double teams. I would say 50% maybe yes, because of what he does, to a team's culture and the assets you have to give up to get him. And then obviously like the proof is in, these last couple teams that he's been to, what they've been like before and after he's been there. But I would also say that this Rockets team is very, very poorly constructed. Like they have so many one-way players, like Reed Sheppard and Alperen Şengün on offense are great, and then they're so bad defensively. But then even Şengün offensively in the playoffs, he can't shoot and he can't defend. That's a hard player to build around in the playoffs. And then like Amin Thompson, incredible defender, but teams just ignore him offensively, and so you're playing 4-on-5 on the other end. So I think that some of this has to do with the Rockets roster construction, which is wild when you consider that they picked in the top four straight seasons.
Yeah, and of course, it really does hurt them not having a ball handler with Fred VanVleet being out all season. So
Yes,
you give
yes.
them that excuse as well. But yeah, I wanted to get a little bit of hit in there on Kevin Durant, especially since it seems unlikely we'll get to do that in the playoffs directly because his team's going to be eliminated. But thinking about the Thunder matchup against the Lakers and you criticize Houston's defense to some degree, but they're leading all teams in the playoffs in steals over 13 per game, and they're forcing 20 turnovers per game by the Lakers. If I'm the Thunder and I see that the Lakers are turning the ball over 20 times a game, I'm salivating.
Oh, yeah. The Thunder are the best team in the league about turning teams over and then also turning those turnovers into easy points, fast break points on the other end, transition points. And then the Lakers they give up the ball so much. Like you said, like it is like the perfect marriage as far as this Thunder defense and turning teams over and this Lakers offense and just willingly giving over the ball on a silver platter. And by the way, that's without Luka, who also likes to give up the ball. And we don't know if he's going to be back or not for round two. Austin Reeves will give up the ball as well. So I will say, though, side note, in that vein, I also saw a stat of free throw rate in the playoffs. And the wildest stat is that the Lakers, without Luka and without Austin Reeves, their top two free throw shooters by attempts and two of the top in the league, Luka by far the number one guy in the league, are still leading the league in the playoffs in free throw rate. That is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, I saw that same stat, or there was a tweet about it, and it's bonkers, but you know what? I believe it. I mean, there is something to the Lakers whistle that I think everybody knows, but it doesn't receive the same attention that the Thunder and the whistle get. I don't get it.
It's ridiculous. This whole free throw narrative with the Thunder is so disingenuous and overblown, and the stats don't back it up. As far as the Lakers whistles go, it is crazy that it does not get the attention that it should. And then, of course, like, the Luka, free throw, somehow it doesn't get talked about like Shai does when it's a much, much worse case. I am not a conspiracy NBA guy. Like in sports, like I just like I don't think the lottery is rigged. I don't think that, there's I don't think all the conspiracies about the NBA that ever get floated, I don't believe in them. But that said, the Lakers whistle is a hard one to wrap your head around because it doesn't matter who's on the roster. It doesn't matter who's on the coaching staff. It doesn't matter who's out there on any given night. We have years and years of a sample size where they lead the league in free throw differential by a large margin. I'm not saying it's on purpose. I'm not saying there is a conspiracy, but that is one that is hard to wrap my head around.
Facts. Yeah, facts. Well, I'm going to ask for some predictions now. Let's just assume that the Lakers are going to win this series because I agree the Rockets are highly unlikely to be the first team to come back from a 3-0 deficit in the NBA. Um, with that, two predictions I'm going to ask you. First, so there was reporting today from Shams that it seems unlikely, or they are saying that Luka will not make it back for the second round. So that's sort of one. Do you think Luka is out the entire second round of the playoffs?
Yeah, the wording on Shams' reports are interesting because yesterday he put out a tweet and a video where he said that Luka's not expected to play in round two. He deleted that video and then he posted a new one today that said he's not expected to play at the beginning or to start round two, and there's no clear defined timeline for his return, basically. So kind of like step back from the whole missing round two period a little bit. But it does sound like at the very least, Luka won't play at the beginning of a round two. Will he end up playing? Like, let's say that he doesn't play the first two games in Oklahoma City. Very, very hard to see this Lakers team without Luka winning either game in Oklahoma City, whether or not the Thunder have Jada, right? So the Thunder take a 2-0 lead. And then let's say that Luka is like on the borderline of whether he's back or not for game three. Like, are the Lakers really going to rush Luka out there for a game three in a series where they're already down 2-0 and they are huge underdogs? I think that would be probably a mistake. And so if he doesn't play in game three, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of snowballs. Are they going to win a game? Like, it's hard to see this Lakers team. Look, all kudos to what they're doing to the Rockets, but this Thunder team is much, much different than the Rockets. We saw in the regular season what the Thunder did to the Lakers, and that's when they had Luka and Austin Reeves. So will they end up playing Luka at all? I don't know. I would say it's like a coin flip that he plays at all, but I don't see him playing the first couple games. And then I would be hard pressed to see them bringing him back at all if they're down 2-0.
Well, on that, and maybe I'm just feeling it from my correct prediction that the Thunder would sweep the Suns, which is really not that hot of a take, just to be candid, but I'm going to take credit for it just the same. And I'm going to go on record and say I predict that they're playing with us a little bit, that Luka is going to play in game three against the Thunder. He will return for game three at home.
Okay. Nice.
Regardless of whether it's 1-1, 2-0, he's going to come back.
Okay. That fair. I could see it because it is, look, as despite everything that I just said, we have seen teams and players in the playoffs come back and rush back. You know, if they're cleared, and maybe it's like a 50-50 call, like we saw Aaron Gordon come back, probably shouldn't have last year. But we've seen guys come back from injuries in the playoffs, and this will be a marquee spotlight matchup. I mean, it's the defending champs and the soon-to-be two-time MVP versus LeBron and the Lakers, the NBA's most glamorous, popular team. And then you add in Luka to the equation, between the ratings and the matchup and them wanting to take down the champs or even just still a couple of games. I could see him coming back for sure. I still think it's a coin flip on whether he does or not.
And I actually probably think it's probably a lot up to Luka as well and how good he feels about it in his long-term career prospects and the risk of a re-injury or something more serious. And so, you know, he might just be not feeling it, right? If he's just like, I don't care. We're going to lose this series anyway. There's no reason I should come back and play this one. Even if I'm at 90%, I'm not coming back for that. Then we don't see him play. But anyway, that's my prediction. But the more important prediction is the outcome of a series between the Thunder and the Lakers. Who do you have in how many games?
I mean, it's hard to say without the Luka equation. So I'm going to, I will say Thunder in 5. And I'm just going to go from the standpoint of Luka's missing the first 2 games and the Thunder have a 2-0 lead. And whether Luka comes back or not, I'll say that it that it ends up that the Lakers still won going forward, and the Thunder win in 5.
Okay, I agree with you. I think it's a Thunder in 5 series, and I feel that the same whether Luka comes back or not. Just because, again, the way that the Lakers have been turning the ball over, and even if Luka comes back, it's unlikely he's going to be at 100%. And so the already questionable defensive play of Luka is just going to be worse with him not at 100%. And then, of course, him giving the ball to the Thunder at a high rate, along with the rest of the Lakers. I see the Lakers really struggling to keep up with the Thunder if they're going to give the Thunder extra possessions. But it's probably going to come down to 3-point shooting, just to be candid. Like if the Thunder shoot 35% or higher from 3-point range, they're going to blow the doors off the Lakers. But if they have one of those nights, which they sometimes do, where they can't hit the broadside of a barn, the Lakers could steal 1 or 2.
Yeah, completely agreed. If the Thunder are going to lose a game, whether it be to the Suns or the Lakers or the Rockets, it would be due to shooting variance. The Thunder's defense and then Shai give them such a high floor that they can weather, some bad shooting nights. But if it's one of those awful shooting nights that comes on the same night where the opposing team gets hot from 3, that's the formula for beating the Thunder. Now, the formulas change when they're playing the likes of the Nuggets or the Spurs or the Celtics or one of those teams. But against the Lakers, against the Rockets, against the Suns, I would agree with you. A shooting variance night could be one that they lose.
Well, in other news around the league, I want to talk about Scott Van Pelt and his comments about SGA that generated a lot of attention on social media. On his podcast, he made the comment that essentially, or verbally, he said that it's not a ton of fun to watch SGA get all those foul calls. You made a comment, and Scott Van Pelt replied to your tweet, and so later, Scott Van Pelt on another pod had to clarify his comments to essentially say, no, it's not what I was saying. I just want to be clear. Like, I should, it sounded worse than what I intended. SG is a great player, yada, yada, yada. But one, do you take credit for Scott Van Pelt having to issue a mea culpa on his SGA comments?
No, I'm not going to take any credit for that, but I appreciate the implication though of giving me the credit. So I will take your implied credit, but I will not give myself credit. No.
And I cannot, we'll all agree that what he said in that context, and maybe it was taken out of context just a little bit because that's what the tweet was, that was the clip. But saying that it's an auto whistle when SGA drives, or I guess when he shoots in general. I mean, that's just, again, we talked about it ad nauseum. It's a ridiculous statement to make.
Oh, it's a ridiculous statement to make. And that's why I originally, quote tweeted what he said. And I just, I like Scott Van Pelt, as far as as a broadcaster and all those things. And I was just surprised to see him say that because he doesn't seem like, one of the analysts, reporters who would watch, some clips on Twitter or NBA social media and make a big sweeping statement that is just not true at all and based in basically vibes from social media and getting kind of caught up into narratives and then make the statements that he did. And so, I just was basically saying, it's people are missing out on an all-time great player and talent because of disingenuous narratives and discourse. And whether it be fans, whether it be reporters, people are just missing out. And so I did appreciate when he addressed it on his next podcast. He kind of walked it back and said, I looked at what I said and it bothered me because, I think he's a great player. He's a basketball genius, and that's not the way I feel. And he kind of walked it back and kind of course corrected. And in this day and age, I think we got to give SVP some credit here because in this day and age, a lot of times people will just stick to their hot takes, regardless of how bad they are or whether or not they got, caught up in Twitter and some clips and disingenuous discourse. and they'll just stick to it, and they'll double down and triple down. And Scott Van Pelt didn't do that. He said, you know what, I kind of messed up here. I got caught up in this, and that's not really fair, and that's not really right. He's a great player. So I did appreciate, his addressing his comments and kind of, saying, my bad. Look, I got kind of caught up in this, and I shouldn't have said that. So I appreciated, that statement.
Well, I'm going to give you credit for Scott Van Pelt having to come out and correct his statement, though. So even though you won't take it, I'm still going to give it to you. We are kind of running short on time, so I'm just going to skip to one last question about the playoffs. And then we'll save for a future pod the discussion of the new anti-tanking proposals, because I'm sure you have thoughts. I have thoughts. But the Nuggets T-Wolves series, game 6 is tomorrow night, and Minnesota leads 3-2. They had a 3-1 lead. The Nuggets destroyed the Wolves here in this last one, and the Wolves are now without Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo. Do you think the Nuggets come back to take this series?
I do think the Nuggets come back to take this series. Minnesota can win game 6 because it's at home, and they still have enough talent and defense to eke out a win against the Nuggets without Anthony Edwards and DiVincenzo and kind of a compromised Naz Reid. But I don't expect it. Without Ant and DiVincenzo, this is such a tough ask of them. And I'm bummed for the Wolves. I'm bummed for Wolves fans because they absolutely 100% deserve to win this series. They were by far and away the better team through 4 games. They clearly had dominated the Nuggets and deserved to win this series. And then they lose their best player, who happens to be a top 5 to 8 player in the league. And then they lose an elite role player in DiVincenzo. So they're out there starting backcourt. And so they are probably going to lose this series. And, what is this going to mean as far as like Jokic's, the discourse with that? Like, is he going to be given credit for coming back down 3-1 and beating the Wolves? And should he be, because his legacy, was kind of taking a little, I shouldn't say his legacy, because I don't want to be like SVP here with his legacy wasn't going to take a hit. But as far as like the whole narrative about best in the world and current best player and his recent playoff success, if he were to go out in round 1, especially the way that this series was going, that Gobert was just dominating this matchup and the Wolves were dominating this matchup, it would have changed some narratives and discourse that's out there. So I'm curious to see what happens now if the Nuggets do indeed win this. So long-winded way to say, yes, I think Denver does win this series.
Yeah, and I guess I'd say the winner of tomorrow night's game is going to win the series. So if the Nuggets win game 6, they're going to win game 7 at home. But it really does suck for the Wolves. And I think it just is another point of evidence or another exhibit as to how much injuries can really impact the course of the playoffs. Because, I do think the Nuggets posed a better matchup for the Spurs in round 2. And if the Wolves were to get past the Nuggets, to me, I think that's a win for the Spurs. I think they match up very well against the Wolves. And so getting the Nuggets, to me, I think makes the road a little bit harder for the Spurs. And I'm sure the Spurs fans are rooting for the Wolves to pull this one out tonight, because they'd love to face a shorthanded Wolves team and clear their path to the Western Conference Finals.
Oh, that would be an all-time easy path to the Western Conference Finals. As tough as the West has been for decades, if you get the Blazers in round 1 and then the Wolves without Anthony Edwards or DiVincenzo in the second round, I mean, that's just a layup to getting to the Western Conference Finals. So as much as I want the Wolves to win because I think they deserve to win this series, I'm actually rooting for the Nuggets to win because that'll be a much, much better series and give the Spurs a much better, much tougher road to get to the Western Conference Finals.
Yep, totally agree. Well, we got to cut this short because that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, host of the podcast, and he's Brandon Rahbar, Daily Thunder beat writer. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Thunder podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future playoff episodes. And if you like what you hear, do us a favor and leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcast, and we'll be back in your feed soon.